Greetings, Poe fans. Welcome to another edition of Poe Unplugged. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith, and we are
The Poetastic Two.
Come zoom with us into the Unbook Club dedicated to the works of Mr. Edgar Allan Poe.
Good evening, and welcome back to Poe Unplugged. Tonight we are going to be reading one of Poe's short stories. It's one that is probably not as well known as some of the great ones, but it is one of the best, to me, sarcastic, just dark humor stories that he has. The System of Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether. So who wants to start us off this evening?
What struck me is this story is very different, a change of pace for Poe, because there's so much dialogue. Usually we have very little or dialogue, except in the detective stories. But this one could be a radio show or a play, a stage play, definitely, and it has been made into into a short film several times. So I enjoyed reading all of the interesting dialogue.
That's true. I didn't really pay attention to that specific thing of the dialogue, but now that you said that, it's like, oh my gosh, yes. It
Yeah,
was
great observation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I completely agree. The dialogue for me, just the word craft is what made this piece for me, because and many of you will probably disagree, but I felt like the plot was very thin. I mean, like paper thin. You saw this coming from a mile away. But what redeemed it was just the kind of delight of the wordplay and the descriptions of the dinner and the chicken and the frog and the people misbehaving. That was the fun part. But in terms of a plot, I didn't think I had a whole lot there.
I mean, I see where you're going. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeanie.
No, let's go. Go ahead.
I see where you're going, right? But again, I think it goes back to the fact that the whole time, like the young gullible visitor to to the madhouse is like, yeah, like, well, they're a little odd, don't you think? Like, wouldn't you say? And then the doctor keeps like reassuring him, like, no, like they have quirks, everyone does, and quirk, blah blah blah. So I think I mean, I absolutely love the fact that even though you feel like you know where it's going, you keep questioning yourself. At least I did the first time I read it.
But the doctor's like saying, well, you know what? We had like this guy show up, and like he was like so dumb that like we thought it was okay for him to come in, but he didn't really understand. I just felt like he was like communicating the whole thing.
But that's what's so great.
I had to suspend disbelief.
But wait, so that's what makes the ending of this act. So I like when I read, I smile or laugh very little because I'm like really serious reader. But at the end, I actually smile like the Grinch, like my lips curl up, because how freaking funny was the last line in the book, where he's like, he's still trying to look up the doctors that he told him to look up, and he still doesn't get it. Like it's hilarious. I mean, it's such a funny moment. I think that last little bit, those last couple sentences, I mean, really make this story shine for me, because at that point we realized that the guy is not the smartest tool in the shed. And he does, and we were all in on the joke, and he even at the end he's still like, well, I really did try to look up this Dr. Tarr and blah blah blah. Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
So Holly, that's certainly one way to look at it, but I guess I particularly like is the last sentence or the penultimate sentence where he says, I'm still trying to look up the system of Dr. Tarr, and it's like italicized and Fether italicized. It's like it felt like it's kind of hitting us over the head with something that was fairly obvious many pages earlier.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I kind of feel like every reader is different, and sometimes readers really need their hands to be held to the end.
That's true.
Like some readers, like I swear to you, like it'll be like a story to me, it's like straightforward, and people will be like, well, yeah, what happened? Like I was watching a Disney movie with my sister, and she's like, a Disney movie. She's like, I don't understand what happened. I'm like you never really know. But you know what I also love about this story as a whole? This whole like the insane person's running the asylum has become like a major horror trope. Like
Hmm.
it I've used it. Movies have used it. It's I mean, I don't know if Poe created this idea of the lunatic being the doctor, but it's absolutely terrifying. And actually, I have a question for Dr. Jeff, so I hope he can answer it for me. I was gonna look it up, see if I can figure out myself, but I watched a movie when I was really young. It was a black and white movie, and it had to do with this theme where a nurse shows up at a insane asylum, but the doctor that she meets is actually the crazy guy and had killed the doctor. Like, so it was like the same post set up, black and white. I remember watching it before I read Poe, and I thought it was one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. What is the name of this movie?
Oh.
Well, it could be Brainstorm, but you might be thinking of a color movie called Asylum, which is a collection of Robert Bloch short stories, and
Huh.
the secret at the end is that the inmates are running the asylum.
I,
But
okay. Yeah, I
but
mean, that's what happened. That was the punchline. Yeah.
that could be it. Brainstorm stars Jeffrey Hunter, and I think he commits himself to an insane asylum for research or something, but I don't think I've forgotten how the movie ends. I don't know whether that one turns out that way or not, but I know Asylum does.
Yeah, I'm
And
writing this down. Yeah, because I'm
and
like,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Now, 160 years later, we've seen everything. We've seen
Yeah.
every movie, every TV show, we've read everything. And
Mhm.
so, what was new and shocking to readers back then is now a cliche to us. We know, oh yeah, the inmates are running the asylum. I've
Yeah.
seen that on soap operas and horror movies and everything. But when people were reading these stories back then, like The Telltale Heart, that was the scariest thing people had ever read. It's still one of the scariest stories, but it certainly was the scariest back then because people hadn't read anything as horrifying as that. So some of the things that we see coming a mile away, like with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Back then, readers had no idea that those two men were one man until the last two chapters of the novel. But now, that's a cliche. Oh, he has a Jekyll and Hyde personality. So we know all of that. But the readers in Poe's time could be shocked and surprised much more easily because Poe was doing things that now have been copied in TV commercials and everything, but they were fresh back then.
One other
That's
movie.
no,
Oh, go ahead,
no,
Mike.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just
No,
going
I was just going to say a couple of things. Holly, you talked about how you laughed and grinned at the end. Well, I have to confess, I laughed and grinned throughout the whole story.
oh, good.
I thought it was hilarious. And it's
Me too.
talking about how the plot was a little thin. Yeah, probably. But I looked at it as a satire on the mental institutions of the mid 1800s
Hmm.
and how they were run, and which thickened up the plot pretty good.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I hadn't read this story until today, to be quite honest. I don't know why I hadn't.
Yeah.
I just never did read it. And Holly called today and was talking and reminded me of tonight. I said, well, I'm going to read that. And I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much, I read it twice, back to back. I got done and I read it again
Oh, that's awesome.
because some of this stuff was so funny. I know it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be kind of, satirical again. But if you go back to the time where, like, in our American history, where like the great nurse Dorothea Dix was trying to, get into mental institutions and to try to straighten things out. And then I couldn't help but thinking about how Charlotte Bronte wrote the book Jane Eyre about the same time this story was written.
Mm-hmm.
And she had one of the Mr. whatever his last name was, wife living in the attic because she had gone nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, there was a lot of stories along this time
Hmm.
about about insanity and schizophrenia
Hmm.
or whatever these poor frogs and chickens had. I don't know, but I thoroughly enjoyed the book.
I
And
agree. I
I really
agree.
did. I'm
The
not the
first time
book,
I
but
read it, the first time I
12,
read it,
15 pages.
yeah, the first time I read it, I was the same way. I was like, I absolutely love it. You know, because at this point I've read it a lot of times, even though it had been a while since I had read it. But yeah, my first reaction to it was I always, if you probably play these back, it's been one of my favorites. Yeah, I mean, it really is. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great lines in this one too.
It is. And
Well, I thought the part where the one lady was taking off all of her clothes, I thought I would get tears in my eyes about that because she wanted to wear her clothes on the outside. And then who else but Poe would
Clothes
come
on
up
the
with some
outside.
stuff like that?
oh yeah.
That was funny.
Well, other movie I was thinking of is Hitchcock's Spellbound,
Yeah.
1945,
Mhm.
where
Yes.
Gregory Peck's character has amnesia and impersonates the head of a mental institution. Don't want to give away too many spoilers, but maybe that one?
Yeah, that could be it. And it has dream sequences that
Yeah.
were done by Salvador Dali.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you know what's funny? That's actually on my to watch list because I've actually never seen the Hitchcock
Oh, it's
one.
so
But I know my
good.
aunt keeps
Okay.
asking me, and the same thing with Steve with Rebecca, which I still have yet to see. It's like on the top of my watch list. So I will let you guys know.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, Holly, there's another movie that came to my mind too. I was thinking of Spellbound too, but
Okay.
there's another one. It was, I think, made in the 50s. It starred Katharine Hepburn, Elizabeth Taylor, and Montgomery Clift.
Is it Suddenly Last Summer?
Suddenly Last Summer. It's one of my favorite movies.
Mhm.
And Elizabeth Taylor gets put into this asylum, which is where she meets Montgomery Clift, who's a psychologist or psychiatrist there. And there's this one scene where she tries to run and she walks into this one doorway, and there's a bridge across this big open pit where all these lunatics are congregated down below, and they reach up, they're trying to grab her ankles as she's trying to make her way to the other side of this bridge. And I'm wondering if that's the one you saw, because I saw that when I was a teenager, and it scared the heck out of me when I saw that.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if
mean,
that's one you're thinking
maybe
of,
because I mean, I
too.
was pretty young. Like I know who Elizabeth Taylor is now, and she's
Yeah.
very recognizable. But maybe back then, I maybe I wouldn't have. So yeah.
That's
And
a great movie.
there's a similar scene like that in the great movie The Snake Pit with
Yeah.
Olivia de Havilland.
Yeah.
She
There's
goes
another
to a
one.
mental institution.
Yeah.
So,
I
as long
remember
as
that
we're
one.
talking about movies, there's actually an explicit a movie that explicitly follows or claims to follow this story
Mhm.
that was this called Mansion of Madness in the English version. Dr. Jeff, I'm looking at you because you seem to know all the movies that have been done. This was, I think, a Spanish language movie originally. It was subtitled in English. And it's like it's almost a 2 hour movie, hour 45-minute movie. And it has anybody seen this Mansion of Madness?
No.
No, but I'm writing
It's
it down.
available. It's available right now. As soon as we finish tonight, go to YouTube. I watched it this afternoon, and it claims to portray. It claims to be based on this story, the Sister Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether, but it's a much more. Poe plays it, I think, for laughs. Poe does this more as dark humor or black humor. But in this movie, it's just grotesque, and it's a way you think of like Dickens portraying an insane asylum. You know, it's ugly. There's abuse, there's torture, there's rape, there's these horrible things going on in this movie. But it claims to be a version of Edgar Allan Poe's System of Dr. Tarr and Professor Feathers, 1973.
Okay.
Which maybe says something in and of itself. But I guess my point is simply that this story that Poe provides for us can either be viewed as a as kind of a comical piece, because there's a lot of comical set pieces in this story of these people, standing up and cock-a-doodle-doo and all that. It can be portrayed as a critique of insane asylums, or it can be portrayed as maybe a mystery or horror, because again, I think Poe intended it wasn't until the end that we would discover the whole import of this, even though I feel like it's communicated fairly early. So, Holly, I'm sorry, but it seems to me.
Or maybe I'm not that smart, Steve.
Well, yeah, it is a commentary on how to and how not to treat mentally ill. And about 50 years later, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman is a wonderful story that is certainly a commentary on women's health issues, but done in a completely serious, dramatic way, horrifying way. It's been made into radio plays and short films that usually emphasize the horror aspect, but that's just one part of that great story. There's a lot more to it than that. But it's completely serious, whereas this is a little bit more whimsical.
I was just reading here. I just Googled some things about this, and it says this is from Wikipedia about this story, and it says at the time this story was written in 1845, the care of the insane was a significant political issue in the United States. People were calling for asylum reform because the mentally ill were being treated as prisoners, while increased acquittals due to the insanity defense were criticized for allowing criminals to avoid punishment. The story has been interpreted as a satirical political commentary on American democracy, a parody of the work of Charles Dickens and Nathaniel Parker Willis, and is also understood as a critique of 19th century medical practices. Interesting.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. I didn't realize that they were thinking about that far back there. I mean, really seriously. I mean, I knew Dickens talked about it, but I didn't realize it was such a big issue that was really
And I wouldn't have thought it was like top of mind for Poe, but maybe that was an inspiration for the story.
Could be.
Well, when Poe first wrote this story, when it was published, the Reformation was going on in America at this point, because like Steve said, with Dorothea Dix and all the other ones, they were trying to do the reforms not only with just the insane asylums or the sanatoriums, but also with the jails, the schools. They were going in and they were trying to make it better, because in the jail system, they had no separation. Doesn't matter what your age was, what gender, everyone was being tried together. If you were a 10-year-old boy, you stole something, you were being tried as an adult for the crime and being put in jail with adults. So that was one of the problems. And then with the sanatoriums, they were having all of this because they were doing experiments, because that's where a lot of our medical ingenuity, and I'm using air quotes, came from, is because a lot of families were taking their unstable or non, anyway, they were taking their family members and sticking them places so nobody would see them because of their reputation. They had to make everything look good, especially the wealthy. So they were just taking them, throwing them in there, and leave them alone. And a lot of these doctors, once more in air quotes, were using them as experiments. And then they were just leaving them, like with Dr. Tarr, Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether, that he was writing. These doctors that weren't really doctors were just letting the inmates run the asylum, and they were being so cruel. I mean, there was a lot of murders going on. I mean, West Virginia. Is it West Virginia or Pennsylvania? Which one of them has I think it's Pennsylvania, has the sanatorium that was, or the insane asylum that was open until the early 1900s, where
Yeah, it's
they would,
Pennsylvania.
yeah, Pennsylvania, where that's where they were doing lobotomies and everything, and they were doing all these experiments. So that's why part of the story, I I can see that Poe was doing the satirical part. He was putting a dark humor on something that was truly horrific that was going on in that age, that he was trying to make. I hate to say it, but he was jumping on the bandwagon with the Reformation times because he was trying to get it out there. I mean, it's just kind of thing it is. And there was nothing wrong with that, but he made it so. And another thing is, this is like when I explained to my kids in the classroom when we were talking about with the Sons of Liberty and how they would take the tax collectors and they'd tar and feather them. And I was like, not a lot of people understand that, you're giving these people a good chance that they're going to die, because tar is not just some kind of warm thing that you just spread across like it's a nice, sunscreen or something. It's almost at the peak of asphalt.
Yeah.
When it's poured on. And then when you're feathering, guess where? They're getting these feathers that are coming off of animals, and those feathers are filled with like mites and ticks and dirt, and you're adding that into pretty much open wounds for tar. It's like, yeah, yeah, it is just so horrible. So it is a satirical look on something that was atrocious at that time period. And I enjoy that Poe was bringing laughter to something that was not funny.
Yeah.
He was trying to make it known, but at the same time, make it look like the people that were in there were living the best life. They were not being used, they were not being abused, they were actually enjoying what they were doing. If you wanted to cock like a, rooster in the corner, yay! If you wanted to throw your clothes off, or if you wanted to croak like a frog, whatever. They were just having the best time and just enjoying themselves. And I think that was one of the things that I liked the most about the story. He was showing how one part of society was calling them lunatics and seeing them as diseased and not good to sit in front of good company or that kind of thing. But on the other side of it is like, they're living their best lives. They're having they're not thinking about anything being kosher or being respectful or anything like that. So, because while I was reading it, all I could think in my head, I started singing Old MacDonald had a farm, you know, so
The funny
that's what I
farm.
was thinking.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we got a chicken, we got a frog, we got a donkey, we got,
Teapot.
we'll have a good old time. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I was going to say one thing to add to what you're saying with Old MacDonald, Jeannie. This is like the second or third time I've read this. The first time I read it was listened to it with Jeff, and we were traveling from somewhere and listening to several different Poe stories. And this time reading it through with all the animals coming through with the frog and the chicken and all that, I was thinking the Muppets should do a version of this.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
Such good satire and everything. But one other thing I wanted to share, and sometimes I forget about these adaptations. Poe Theater on the Air, the National Edgar Allan Poe Theater up in Baltimore, have recorded several different adaptations of Poe's stories, and it's done from the perspective of all of these characters that Poe has created are in an asylum, and there's this unreliable narrator who is visiting the asylum And I forget the doctor's name, but the doctor is showing the narrator through the asylum with all these different people, and they'll stop, and this, like, the narrator in the Telltale Heart, he'll tell his story. And so I looked it up just a second ago, and they did a version of this, and it is on their website, and it's also on Spotify. But what they actually adapted it from was apparently in 1903, and I'm reading this, the theater, and I may butcher this, so sorry, the Theater du Grand Guignol in Paris produced a gruesome black comedy adaptation of this famous and noteworthy Poe story, which the author titled The System of Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether. And so in France, it was known as The System of Dr. Goudron and Professor Plume. And so they translated the play from the original French and did their version from that. So I thought that was really fascinating.
And that is exactly the plot of the movie Asylum that I mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Robert Powell, I think, is the visitor who goes to the asylum and goes to each room, and the inmate, Barbara Parkins, or whoever he or she is, tells his or her story to him, and we see it acted out.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But I think this is like I think it's like probably one of the most important questions of the whole story, and that is, was Poe making a political commentary on insane asylums, or was he just playing this for laughs? Because I could see it both ways. You know, that it's presented in a way that's just kind of a set piece, and you know, you see these people acting this way that's really absurd, and it's. I found it again. The wordplay was funny. It was, if he weren't a chicken, it's a shame that he wasn't, because he'd be such a perfect chicken.
Exactly.
But so was it more just kind of a set piece, kind of played for laughs, or was he really trying to make a political commentary? I don't know the answer to that question, but I could see it either way, especially given what a number of you have said, that at that time, Jeanie, I think you were focusing on this. At that time, this was like becoming a major political issue. Is how are we treating the mentally deranged?
Well, what isn't satire? My understanding of satire is that it's often a way to either through humor or shock to warm an audience up to an issue that they might not be aware of, so that they might then decide to start approaching it and dealing with it on a serious level, possibly, like Gulliver's Travels and things like that.
Right, and A Modest Proposal.
Oh, yeah.
And that goes along well with that time period, because this is coming off of where the first political cartoons started emerging with, Andrew Jackson and all that. And so that satirical imagination was making its political debut. So, and then you had a lot of others that were jumping on the bandwagon in newspapers and writing these articles and editorials. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this was, and like Steve said, it could be taken either way, because we don't know truly what Poe's motivation was for writing this story. But I can see it both ways. One, he was just writing a very humorous, satirical avenue for a time where these type of people were shunned by society, but they were having their best life. And then on the other aspect of it, he was like poking at the political of going, why are you being this way? Because here's the thing, at the very end of it, I was getting from the narrator when he was trying to look up Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether, it wasn't that I thought that he was, basically an idiot for still believing it. I honestly thought that he ended up there because the friend that he was traveling with was dropping him off,
Ah,
was
that's a good point.
bringing him there.
Interesting.
Yes. And
Thought
so,
about that.
because it just ended so abruptly with me, because he was talking about how they were getting, attacked by these chimpanzees and these, so basically it was all the guards that had been tarred and feathered that were coming in, and they were taking back the asylum. And he just was like, all these animals are attacking, and then it just stops.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just talks about how he was looking for
Mm-hmm.
the system of Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether, and I'm going, uh-huh. So yeah, it's like he was living his best life too, because he's like, hey, I thought this system worked. I'm like, worked for me.
I just found an article from the Edgar Allan Poe Society of Baltimore, which we get a lot of our research from. That between them and the Poe Museum, they supply us with everything we need pretty much. But the article, I just put a link in the comments. It's called Poe's The System of Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether, Dickens or Willis. And so apparently there's one theory, and I quickly read this and just trying to surmise this, but Dickens apparently visited an asylum in South Boston while he was in America. And because of there's some loose feelings that maybe Poe was saying that the visitor was Dickens in a roundabout way, only because while they met, Dickens was going to possibly help him because Poe asked him to help publish his tales, that he didn't really, and that he was kind of not happy. And so it could be that. But then the other person mentioned, Willis, is Nathaniel Parker Willis, and his story was The Madhouse of Palermo. And so it could have been Willis. Now, it could be neither of them, but that's just a theory. And the article is a lot longer than what I had a chance to read, but that might give us some answers if we take the time after we, end tonight. So,
and I agree with Jeanie. I think he was killing two birds with one stone. I think he was writing a funny, weird story, but making social commentary at the same time, because we know that he loved current events. He kept up with shipwrecks and premature burials, and wrote for magazines. So a lot of his writing is nonfiction, and so I think it would be natural for him to want to make some sort of comment on this social issue, but in his own inimitable way.
yes.
Yeah. I can definitely see that, because that's what I was listening to. Well, in between my singing in my head, was, because, and then I had to think about, the song I'm a Little Teapot, Short and Stout, popped in there too. So, yeah, all these things. And that's what I love the most about Poe's writing. These are things that were in my head that weren't at the time of Poe, but they triggered those because it's like Poe was a precursor to these happening, and like the whole cliche of the inmates running the asylum type of thing.
Yeah.
That, like Dr. Jeff and Cheryl and Holly and Mike and everybody was talking about, all those different movies that are so trope with this plot. It's like you can't throw a rock and not hit one. So, and Steve, I'm actually very interested in watching that. You said it was The Mansion of Madness. Is that what it was? Okay, you're on mute. But
yes, Mansion of Madness, 1973. Be prepared for some nudity. I mean, it's 1973.
Oh, now I'm gonna watch it.
Well, it can't be any worse than this Netflix show that I fell into. That, it was like one of those train wrecks that you start watching it and you're like, I can't stop watching it because you're thinking it can't get worse, and then it keeps getting worse, and it's like, why am I still watching it? It's like I lost like hours of my life on
Yeah.
these episodes going, what the, you know? So, and it's not in the 70s. I don't know if anybody ever watched Billy Jack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So,
Four movies.
yeah. Well, my brother being older than me was always, he when he came back from Germany, he brought back the first VCR, the Gold Star, and he brought back all of these recorded movies on VHS. And so when my parents were at work and my brother was at work, I would, get out of his movies and I would just start watching them on his VCR. I didn't know what they were, but I was a preteen. What did I care? So I got a nice little introduction to a lot of 70s movies that I'm like, oh, Billy Jack. I'm going, oh, okay.
This explains a lot about you, Jeanie.
Exactly. Tell me, I was like 5 years old and listening to Molly Hatchet because my brother had it. So it was like, well, okay. And then Black Sabbath. No, wait a minute. I will have to say I love Black Sabbath. War of the Giants is still one of my favorites, songs. But yeah, I would say that. And then my mom and dad being older because they were older generation, growing up with country music and, I mean, the good, like Porter Wagner, Dolly Parton, all the good old. So it's like I was stuck in so many different worlds with the black and white movies, the Andy Griffith and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's why, yeah, it could explain a lot. But I blame my brother for all the bad stuff. He was the bad influence.
I got
What,
more of a
Mike?
question than anything else. Carmen said earlier, a little while ago, we were talking about when they sang the little teacup song or whatever it was. It brought back a memory, the teapot.
Uh-huh.
And then I just recalled a part of the book that kind of struck up my ears when I read it, knowing what kind of wordsmith that Poe was. It gets to the end of the book when everything was going in bedlam and they were all singing and blowing their horns and taking their clothes off and all kinds of stuff. And then they started singing Yankee Doodle.
Yes.
And I got to thinking, why did he pick that song, Yankee Doodle? Is it because of his Southern heritage? Or is it he just thought it fit in with the story? And it's almost kind of like he's throwing a little politics in there on the top of it. And that's probably completely off base. But I think Yankee Doodle in this story.
No, it actually works out perfectly, Mike. Because if you think about it, with the whole tar and feathering during the American Revolution with the Sons of Liberty, Yankee Doodle was the theme of, stick a feather in his hat and call him Yankee Doodle. So yes, he was very political. I think with the title of this and because I'm like you, when I saw Yankee Doodle, I'm going, really? Are we really reverting back to the feather in the hat and calling them Yankee Doodle? But I'm like, well, they are enjoying themselves, so
That's it. Since you were talking about movies, I had one recollection. It's sort of related to this. You all remember back at the story of the 1949 when the kid thought he was seeing spirits and demons and they made a movie called The Exorcist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was based on a boy who was possessed.
Yeah, and they actually put him at the Alexan Brothers Hospital, which was my mother used to work there. They actually put that boy at the Alexan Brothers Hospital, which started out to be a Catholic hospital for men, but then it sort of evolved into the Alexan Brothers Insane Asylum. And so they actually put him up there on the top floor, which I thought was very interesting. And that, because there's always talking about getting, bringing all this stuff to your attention, bring it out in the open, let's talk about it, and yada, yada, yada. that hospital didn't close down until 1982.
Oh,
So this was like 150 years after all this stuff started being talked about, that this hospital was still going on. And I thought that was just worthless information, but I thought it was interesting.
Or were they using the
And I went
soothing
to an
method?
insane asylum once. I don't know, but I went to an insane asylum once. I was not a patient. Probably should have been. I went with my brother-in-law, whose father was an administrator of the St. Louis State Asylum for the
oh,
mentally ill here in St. Louis.
Okay.
And I went with him, and I remember going into that hospital and being scared to death
yeah.
because of the way I see the abuse, but what I heard was screaming and cussing and throwing clothes and banging on the walls. And I was told by my brother-in-law, no matter what you see, just keep on walking. And I think how sad that is, that I am so glad that times have changed to where I don't feel like people are treated like that anymore. And that's really all I got to say about that.
Well, and one of the things that I want to
So
say
Poe,
is about how you
I
said
was
it
going to say,
wasn't shut down till
if Poe had a part of
1982.
that,
Yeah, Poe would be a part of that.
1982.
But the thing about it is unfortunately, there are still places that are still operating in some avenues around the world and especially in the United States. And because, and I'm speaking from personal experience from where I grew up, when you are far enough off the main grid from mainstream America, they don't really pay attention to what you do unless it becomes a political issue. So, and I'm not saying that it is that abhorrent. I'm just saying that things are still happening that many people think aren't in the world and in the United States, but it's like, well, you can't it's like as a teacher, you can't save them all. You can't monitor every single person or every single thing. You just hope that there is one person and it could have been Poe during this time, that is paying attention enough to where he's trying to bring enough focus to say, hey, we need to make a change. Something needs to be done. So it's sad to say, but it is true. And it's like, oh, it's just awful. Some of the things like slavery, when I had to teach an American history about slavery, and I'm like, guys, you don't understand. Slavery is still alive and well in the world. You know, it still is. You just don't hear much about it, and mostly it's just called human trafficking now.
Right.
Well, now another big change that I'm grateful for personally, for those of us in here that have been teachers, particularly teachers in elementary schools. You know, when I was a kid raised in St. Louis, there was one elementary school here. I don't know about high school, but I do remember the elementary school that was for nothing except for kids that were mentally challenged. In those days, retarded was the word. And now there isn't any of those. The kids are included as much as possible into a regular school, which I think is so neat, because when I was a principal down in Texas, we had one whole unit that was just kids who were mentally challenged.
Yeah.
It was so neat because they participated right along with everybody else. And so I think changes are coming. So I'm grateful for that. There's people like Poe and Dix and all the other people who stood up and said, wait a minute, I don't think this is right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's all
Mike,
I'd say about that.
Mike, from being an elementary school teacher, I had those kids in my classes. We called it mainstreaming at that time,
Right.
like 15 years ago. And there's two sides to that. to that, as you could probably tell what I'm going to say. It's sometimes it's very hard to teach the class because you suddenly find yourself giving that one student all your attention. And it didn't happen in my class, but there were some classes, and I was teaching fifth grade. There were some classes in the lower grades, first and second and third, where some parents took their kids out of a class where the teacher was giving that one particular student too much attention to the detriment of the other kids. So the parents would pull their kids out who didn't have those issues because they wanted their kids to be able to have, equal time. But it's difficult for teachers to know how to juggle that.
Yeah.
You want to help that child, but you also don't want to neglect the rest of the class. If you do it right, you get the other kids to jump in and help and become friends with that kid. And I was fortunate enough to have a class where the kids already had that built in because they had been with this one particular boy since kindergarten. And here they are 5 years later in my class with him. And they basically took him in hand in a positive way and helped him. So that's a good example of the kids learning, as you're saying. I ultimately still think it's a really good thing because the other kids can learn and become empathetic to that, or at least sympathetic to that, and be positive role models for that child. So sorry for that.
Well, we also had it though, but during their IEP or their meetings, that we would not put a child into a mainstream classroom unless he or she could be accompanied by a teacher's aide.
Yeah.
Who does the trade, and that was built into the budget to do that. But the fact is, I still am happy that they were allowed, even if it was only 5 minutes a day that the kid got. They knew that they were not.
They weren't forgotten. They weren't pushed aside. They weren't forgotten. They didn't fall through the cracks. Yeah, it was ultimately a really good thing that they did.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I agree with that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts about Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether? Anything?
Something I noticed was that, and this has happened in other Poe stories, the assignation, I think, is one of them too, where there are two scenes and they're not equally divided. We start at the beginning of the story, we're in, say, outside. And then suddenly the scene shifts to the inside. So there's like one little segment, we're outside. And then all of a sudden we're inside where all of this other action is taking place.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that with this story as well, that briefly we're outdoors and suddenly we're inside and all of these things are going on. There's such a dichotomy between the world outside versus the world inside. Mm-hmm. in some of Poe's stories.
Yeah, it's almost like you've got that general, and then he's really focusing in.
And then all of a sudden we're focused in on
something
really intense going on indoors, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point, Cheryl.
Sometimes Poe was cinematic long before there was cinema.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. I hadn't thought of that word. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Mark DeWidziak or Chris Sempner said that it was like Poe really kind of created the TV drama style of just the hour, because he always said you need to be able to sit down and start a story and finish it within a reasonable amount of time. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about like a sitcom is 30 minutes, a drama or some story like that is an hour for TV. Poe in a way kind of set that style, but kind of loosely. But and I was going to say one other thing about Tarr and Fether from the article that I looked at. It's escaped my brain, so it's all right.
Sorry, I probably took it away. Sorry.
Oh no! It wasn't you. It's just my brain.
Well, once again, I just want to say I enjoyed reading it. Thank y'all for bringing it out. Reminding me.
This was fun. It was fun.
Yeah,
fun in a weird way.
I might just crawl in bed and read it again tonight before I go to sleep.
There you go.
Sweet dreams.
That was not. That was a not. I'm not going to read it again tonight.
Yeah, but yeah, it is a fun story to read, and a kind of an escape from, like horror, even though that's not really everything he wrote. But I like to fit in all the different things. And speaking of different styles of his writing, next month is going to be the Purloined Letter. I know Cheryl made that suggestion, and it'll be the last of the 3 detective stories, because we've already done the other 2. And so we've kind of done one each year for the past 3 years. So that's really a neat way that we've done that. And so, and then Jeanie, do you remember what we have coming?
The Man of the Crowd.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Dr. Jeff.
I don't know why you're asking me. Ask Dr. Jeff. I'm like, why are you asking me?
Yes, but yes, the Man of the Crowd will be in March. So
yes, that's a fun one too.
I really like that one. It's very different as well.
No, that one to me fits really well with Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether.
Yes, and I've got to reach out to Lynn Cullen, and I just realized Gary's not here tonight. I didn't never hear. Usually if he's not going to be able to make it, he does message, but he had suggested, I think is it Mrs. Poe?
Yes.
Cullen. I want to make sure I was saying the right title. She is available for August, so we'll do that in August. So, and I think Cheryl, you may have suggested that one. It was you.
Well, I suggested a couple that escaped mine, and that was one of them, I think, too. A couple I saw were like 300 something pages, and so we were gonna maybe but I think Mrs.
Give
Poe,
it a few months.
Yeah, give it a few months. But Mrs. Poe was one of, I think, the 3, and then somebody else chimed in on that one too. So
yeah, I've read that story. She actually uses the insane asylum in that one.
Okay.
It's a good story.
Yeah, so we'll put that on August, and so I think we've got planned out. I don't have my notebook near me right now, but yes, so we've got definitely through March, maybe April, and I can't remember what that one is. But so any other thoughts on things to read, just shoot us an email, and because we're up for, if you want to do something that's not just written by Poe, but other things that some books and things like that, just we're open to all kinds of suggestions.
By the way, April is the spirits of the dead.
That's right. Yes, because it's poetry. Thank you.
It'd be fun to get, his name always escapes me. He's Irish. He's the one who did
Wayne. Yes.
Wayne.
Yes.
Yeah. I loved his, that one he did, the video he did, panning over that cemetery.
Wayne is amazing. He's so good. His original stuff is just as good as Poe, in my opinion. He's awesome.
It is.
That's the creepiest video of that type I think I've ever seen. It was so well done.
It's hauntingly beautiful.
Hauntingly beautiful.
Yes,
exactly.
We'll see if we could maybe get Mr. Wayne to come here and recite that.
That would be great.
Yes. So yes,
that would be a total coup. If
it would,
you could do that, you would have 100 people on this
Probably
feed.
So.
I will definitely be there.
Yeah, I'd be there.
Not that anybody cares. Like, please have her stop coming.
Yes. All right. Jeanie and I will contact Wayne and see if he can join us, because he has joined us before for different things that we've done. So yeah. Right. Well, if there's not anything else, I guess on that note.
So I would just ask one question, and that is, in The Flavored Raven, one of my favorite books.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys do a System of Dr. Tarr and Professor Fether?
Yes. There is in the story, he mentions the cauliflower with velouté sauce.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff actually researched all the different styles of velouté sauce and created one based on French recipes with the cauliflower, and I believe also our corn chowder It's chicken bacon corn chowder is also named after that as well.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
thank
glad you got the chicken in there. You got the
Yes.
chicken in there. That's good.
Absolutely.
Is there any rabbit of is there any rabbit of shot in there?
Yeah. Rabbit au chat.
No.
Yeah, no.
Rabbit,
Ugh.
I
No.
love it. Bye,
That's
y'all.
hilarious. All
Bye,
right.
Mike.
Hope you
Have a
feel
good
better.
night.
Yeah, I hope
Happy
you feel better,
birthday,
Mike.
Thanks.
Steve.
I will.
Happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Steve.
Happy birthday. And
Happy
Fether.
birthday.
Everybody.
I guess on that note, we are
We are
Oh,
out.
out.